Good evening. Radical changes are coming to London Underground. Changes which the Mayor says will take the Tube to the next level. At weekends, there'll be trains running on some lines throughout the night, a move which has been warmly welcomed by many. But it was also revealed today that despite an election pledge from the Mayor, most ticket offices will be closed with a loss of 750 jobs. However, LU has said there'll be no compulsory redundancies. Well, today's announcement represents a landmark moment for London Underground, but could trigger a wave of strikes and disruption in the run-up to Christmas and beyond. Well, we start our coverage tonight with our political correspondent, Carl Mercer.
Two men making two announcements that are likely to get two very different reactions.
This is the most exciting thing that has ever happened for London and its nighttime economy. Absolutely fantastic.
What the Mayor and the Managing Director of London Underground wanted to talk about were plans for the first time to run the Tube through the night on Fridays and Saturdays. It'll happen by 2015, a boost, they say, to London's nighttime economy.
This is just the first stage in an opening up of the Tube network to become fully 24 hours.
More difficult to push through, though, will be plans to shut every single ticket office on the Tube, with staff put out on the platforms and stations instead. The changes are big and could be controversial. 950 station staff are set to lose their jobs, but 200 will be taken on to work on late-night Tube running. That, say TfL, will save them £50 million a year. They say it'll help pay for things like Wi-Fi coverage at all below-ground stations. There'll be disabled access at a further 27 stations, and TfL say it'll also help pay for new contactless bank payments for tickets. The ticket office closures are most controversial and are a long way from what the Mayor had previously promised. Because this is what you said in 2008 when you were campaigning to be Mayor, and you said,
Why don't we keep the ticket offices open to give people the sense of safety and security that they want?
2 years later, when he was Mayor, this is what he said.
No ticket offices will be closed, all right? They are not going to be closed. Technology has galloped ahead, and we need to take account of the massive changes in the way our system runs. We no longer have people buying paper tickets in the numbers that they did 6 years ago.
Well, I think that your viewers will be rightly cynical of politicians, because this is the man who got elected on a mandate of keeping all booking offices open in 2008. By the time he leaves office, there will be not a single one of them left.
Whenever services are running at a station, day or night, that station will be controlled by London Underground staff.
This London Underground video of the planned changes paints a rosy picture of the future, but unions have already condemned the proposals. No stop press! As did a group of disabled campaigners at Westminster this afternoon. Strikes seem inevitable.
4 million people use the Tube every day. This is bad news for them. They're not going to have the service that they are entitled to and that they need. And of course, we're a trade union. Our members are going to be all being asked to reapply for their jobs in this.
I did make the point to them that I was absolutely committed to ensuring that the Tube remains a publicly owned, publicly accountable railway, publicly accountable to Londoners, and that we continue to work together for the benefits of our employees and their members. Clearly they will have some very legitimate views over the next several weeks and months, and I am absolutely determined and committed to listen to those views.
For passengers, that could mean strikes before Christmas. The unions say their fight against the plans will be on an unprecedented scale. Carl Mercer, BBC London News.
Well, critics are saying that running the Tube through the night at weekends is just a sweetener to win over the public as mass job losses are announced. But the news is being met with delight in the pubs and bars of the West End who've been calling for this for years. Tara Welsh is in a pub in Covent Garden for us this evening. Tara.
Well, people drinking here this evening have about 6 hours before they've got to get their last train. But for some, gone will be the days of downing that drink and running for the last tube, because from 2015 the Underground will operate a 24-hour service on Friday and Saturday nights. It'll run on 5 lines, the Piccadilly, Victoria, Central and Jubilee lines, and on parts of the Northern line, and transport bosses say the tubes will run at least Saturday nights. It'll run on... Well, I've been speaking to some people in the West End tonight to see what they think of the plans.
We're from New York, and the subway runs 24 hours a day there, so I would definitely be very happy about being able to take it.
In terms of saving costs at the end of the night, I think it sounds great.
Very good idea for us that go to the theatre late at night.
because sometimes, you know, we're scrabbling to get the last train home.
A tube train's not going to take you right to your doorstep, so hopefully it won't affect us at all.
Well, when drinkers are happy, so are many businesses. And joining me now is Simon Thomas, the owner of the Hippodrome in Leicester Square. Simon, what do you make of these plans?
I think it's fantastic news. It's a really exciting development that could help transform London. London is an amazing 24-hour city, but it needs a 24-hour transport network to support it. And it's something that we've been crying out for. When I was on the West End Commission, it was one of our strong recommendations, and we're delighted that Boris has come through and announced what is announced today.
What do you say to people that say, well, where there's later trains, that means more drinking and ultimately more trouble?
I think probably the easiest way of thinking about that one is the police are in favour of it because it helps disperse people at the end of the evening. But it's not just about drinkers. It's about all the people that work in the West End, the workers, the cleaners, the security who've got to move around. And it's about our 24-hour services like police, fire, ambulance. They all need that service. And the tubes running later will help reduce the pressure on night buses. It'll stop people having to drive into town and hopefully get rid of those blasted rickshaws.
Well, TfL say that trains through the night won't cost any more than they do in the day, and they say those extra fares will pay for the service.
OK, Tarash, thanks very much for that. Well, let's discuss all this with John Leach from the RMT Union and Mike Brown, the Managing Director of London Underground, who joins us now from their headquarters. Mr Brown, how does the world's oldest tube network with millions of users every single day suddenly realise it doesn't need hundreds of staff at its stations?
Well, we are going to have hundreds of staff at our stations. We're continuing to have many, many more staff at our tube stations than most metros around the world. The really great news about this is, though, these are going to be visible staff. They're going to be out and about. They're going to be in our ticket halls. More platform staff than we've ever had before, helping people at those critical parts of the station and ensuring that people who come into the station get the sort of personal service they require and are able to buy every type of conceivable ticket they would ever want from the machines, properly supported by our staff.
Mr Brown, you're always making it sound. Mr Brown, you're almost making it sound as if you're not losing 750 jobs, but you are.
Well, we're certainly reducing the number of posts on our system. We're going to do that, I hope, without the need for any compulsory redundancy. I'm very committed to work with our trade unions and colleagues to ensure that happens. But this is about making sure that those office jobs, those jobs in the back of stations where people have been tied to desks previously, are freed up and they're allowed with modern technology to roam the stations and to help passengers more visibly. I think that's good news for Londoners. I think it's good news for the tube.
Well, let me ask Mr Leach. We saw you briefly in Carl's report and you're clearly not very happy. Are you happy now that you've heard Mr Brown?
No, we're not happy at all. We think this is a devastating piece of news for our members, but more importantly, the people who use London Underground. 4 million people who use the excellent services of London Underground are now going to be without 1,000 frontline staff there to help them when they're needed. Treasury-driven cuts. This is £270 million worth of savings being put on the table by London Underground. And it's going to result in a far less safer underground, in our opinion.
Right, you say you're doing this partly for Londoners who use the underground. They seemed very happy in Tara's report there at a 24-hour service.
Well, that's a wholly separate matter, and you know my union has no problem with those developments. It's interesting to know how you're going to do it with 1,000 less staff in the front line. I mean, plugging it with 200 sounds pretty good initially, but when you get beneath the surface, I don't think the figures stack up. This is dreadful news for the people who use the underground, and it is dreadful news for the people who work for it.
Well, let me ask Mr Brown that. Mr Brown, do the numbers stack up? £50 million of savings, which you're very widely talking about, but what about the cost of extra 24-hour tubes?
Well, there will be an additional cost for 24-hour tube, but we're very confident we will get an increased usage of the service. People who perhaps wouldn't have used the tube before to go into London to enjoy themselves on a Friday and Saturday night. And as was rightly said in the report, you know, it's also for getting people who do the critical service jobs in London, who clean up after people in bars and restaurants, or come in early shifts at weekends to hospitals, who have better access to getting to their jobs as a result of this. But, you know, I would just say to those who say that this is about a safety issue, that we're destaffing the tube and taking people away. Every single tube station is going to have a member of staff visible and out and about while train services run. People said a few years ago we met some changes there was going to be a safety wasteland. The numbers just don't stack up. That did not happen, and it won't happen this time.
Mr. Brown, thank you. Let me just put to Mr. Leach, as I know safety is a big issue, and strikes are another big issue, especially for Londoners. Are they going to take place? Are they going to take place before Christmas?
Hopefully not, and I think this campaign, which my union has launched today, to stop this attack on the Underground and this delivering a far poorer service for customers, won't be just about strikes before Christmas or after Christmas. It will involve industrial action if it has to. We would rather avoid that. We're going to take the campaign to the people of London. We believe that the people who use the Underground are on our side, and that stacks up in the interviews that we heard earlier. And all I would say is that, you know, they should step back. The Mayor should step back from this. Doesn't need to do it. And they should see sense.
OK, Mr. Leach, let's see if he takes your advice. And Mr. Brown, thank you very much. Now, stay with us tonight.